Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being the show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Supernatural as well as the latest episode of Beyond. Like always, if I'm talking about something you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include the time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you want to hear what I had to say about this week's episode of Supernatural, you can skip to what I had to say about this week's episode of Beyond. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is this week's episode of Supernatural. So in this episode, we had Donna's niece Wendy getting kidnapped. The whole her last name, they made a point to show it because the dude Marlon at the register was like, "Oh, it's such an interesting last name." Completely went over my head because I completely forgot Donna's last name because it's just it's Donna, you know. I like Jody. I don't even remember Jody's last name because I'm just kind of terrible with last names like that. So it completely went over my head that was Wendy, and she brings in Sam and Dean, which is also interesting because obviously this case, it's not the best case for Sam to be on because for him, he's kind of down in the dumps because it's everything's kind of falling apart. It's they got saved last time, but Kaya died, and the fact of the matter is Mom's gone, Jack's gone, they haven't been in contact with Cass either. I mean, because they still don't know. The fact is that Asmodeus has him, and they still also don't know that Lucifer's back on Earth, so that's interesting too. So it's just for him, it's just things have not been working out, and it's just you see it at the beginning. He can't go to sleep. He's just kind of moody and not himself. But anyway, the main part of this episode deals with the fact that they're going after Wendy. Doug's part of this too, and basically, ultimately, this episode brought out some interesting things. Well, for one, the fact is that it turns out that this is a serial kidnapper. This FBI agent named Clegg shows up. He's he calls this guy the Butterfly, just the way he migrates from different places and kidnap people. I was kind of 100% thinking it was going to be that pastor in the end when it was kind of he was there at the table. He saw that shirt with blood. I was like, oh, it's going to be him. He's going to reveal himself to be a vampire, but he's not the one behind this. Turns out he's not. He's done some perverted, messed up stuff in the past. He's done some bad things, but it's no, he's not the bad guy in this particular situation. So, which is kind of an interesting thing I want to point out too when it came to this whole episode too. I feel like we saw a different side of Donna. I mean, because this is the first time a case has gotten personal for her. Because you normally Donna's got a happy disposition, so she's very got a very happy demeanor. In this episode, you really saw her not really being herself. I mean, just because of the sheer nature of the case, and I thought that was kind of interesting. It's not like Donna doesn't take things seriously in the past, but it was almost like a different Donna we saw in front of us. I thought that was just kind of interesting. But it seems what kind of a lot of stuff I wasn't too surprised about. For example, Marlon being a vampire. I figured he was one just because of the whole website thing. It's the fact of the matter is he knew about the website and he's up there smirking and smiling. It's his excuse of I get paid to sell people out. It's well, okay, you're a scumbag. So I kind of had a feeling he was a monster, but just because of that. And I had a feeling it was Clegg too, just because it's the evidence being planted. I'm well, you're the one who found the evidence and stuff like that. It was also interesting too that Sam brought up the whole aspect of we should actually be more careful. The FBI, we're still on their wanted list. It's well, they think we're dead, and it's but don't you think it's a little weird? We shouldn't really be getting too close, working with a real FBI agent being here and everything. But nevertheless. Getting back to the main point I want to discuss though is the fact is that the whole aspect of selling people part by part to monsters. At first I was thinking this was all about vampires because obviously the opening and everything makes it seem like it's all going to be about vampires. It's no, they play a smaller part. The fact of the matter is this is about monsters in general that eat people. And Clegg kind of brought up an interesting thing I thought was kind of fascinating. He's well, Sam, how many monsters do you think are out there? He's hundreds and thousands. He's actually, add one. No, actually, add 2 more zeros to that. The fact of the matter is there's a lot of monsters that he's basically saying the monsters that Sam and Dean have come across basically in the 13 years that they've been doing this within the confines of the show. Obviously, there's time before that we're not counting, but at least within the show, the 13 years they've been doing this. All those monsters are the stupid monsters. The monsters that can't hide. They kind of get too caught up in wanting to eat and everything that they end up killing people. And obviously hunters like you track them down and kill them. Well, there are tons and tons of monsters out there you don't know about. You don't want to know about because they'd be too much for you to handle. Because for one, not only are there so many monsters, the fact of the matter is you don't know what they're really capable of. We only saw 3 in this particular case, but there's monsters all over the place that you might have never even crossed paths with before. And it was just kind of an interesting thing of like, oh, look at me, I'm doing a civil service for the world, for humanity, because if it wasn't for me feeding these monsters, random people that no one would miss, then these monsters would kind of go out and looking for food on their own. And so basically I'm saving lives is his twisted way of looking at it, which is kind of interesting because the way the episode made it seemed like Clegg isn't a monster. I mean, it never came up what he was or anything. So it seems like he's a normal human being doing this. He's a human that knows about the supernatural world. And I guess, well, it's like, well, I can make a profit off of this while also being a humanitarian, while really helping the world by sacrificing people to these monsters, essentially. So I thought that was such an interesting thing, but because even this late in the show, they're already putting up the fact is like I said, this is season 13, and they're like, oh yeah, you thought everything else we've seen as all there is. There is so much more out there that you can't even scratch the surface of just how many monsters are really out there. Because, like I said, the monsters you come across, they're idiots. They're the ones that aren't very good at hiding, like really covering their tracks. The ones you really should be scared about are the ones that blend in so well you can't tell what they are. It's like, that is a scary thought. And I thought that was such an interesting point to bring up. And I feel like that is really like a precursor to set up some stuff in the future of like, you know, to think about that. Like, you have that there's so many, these monsters have blended themselves so well in the society. It could be, oh, this could be your neighbor mowing their lawn. That person you trust and thought was like a good friend and good neighbor. It's like, oh, they're secretly a monster that eats humans, you know? So just that aspect I thought was kind of interesting. And just to think about the fact is that, like, it's like, oh, basically saying every monster you run into are kind of idiots because they're just not very good at covering up their tracks. They're kind of let their hunger and just the way they operate kind of control and dictate them. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. Here's why, going back to why I think Clegg was a human. When Dean shot him, he just bled and just died. So I was like, yeah, it's got to be a human. The situation involved, sadly, you know, Doug getting turned into a vampire, which Doug had the best reaction when, like, you know, Donna was when it was all said and done and he was cured and everything. Donna's like, oh, you're fine. He's like, okay, I was a vampire. She's like, for a couple of hours. But it's that sad situation when it comes towards the life that they lead as hunters. That aspect of like Doug not being able, he's like, I know, I can't help you with this whole situation. Because it's sad, because the first beginning of the episodes made it seem like, oh, like he might choose to be with them. Because the fact is, Dean and him had that whole conversation. I love the fact is that Dean was like, oh yeah, we're actually family, and making up that lie so he could kind of investigate the case and everything. But it's kind of interesting because there was like the whole like, oh yeah, Donna recently had a family reunion. It was like, oh, kind of interesting because like I don't think they brought up the fact that she had siblings before this. I mean, to be fair, there's actually a lot more to these characters you really never really know much about until it happens. Like, it wasn't until like, well, I think it wasn't until like well after the fact that you learned about Bobby and his family situation. And then I was like, and then I was just thinking, I was like, oh, what about Jody? I was like, oh, right. I forgot. We know Jody's situation, how tragic that is. I was like, right. So, you know, it's usually like after you get introduced to a character that you really find out there's stuff like that. In this particular case, so it's like we're learning little bits here and there about Donna. But like, what I mean is like I get the feeling like since they set Wendy up, I feel like, and it had that whole mention of a family reunion, makes me think eventually in the future we're going to run into like other people like Donna's siblings, sibling or siblings, depending on like how many she has. And that's going to get complicated with the whole like you kill monsters and everything. But getting back to the point, like Dean and him had that whole conversation. He's like, you care for Donna. You're a good guy, Doug. All you got to do is just trust her, because he was worried because it's like, yeah, Donna's not acting like herself. We're not talking as much. I know she's going through what she's going through, but we're not talking at all. And I get the feeling she's hiding something from me. And hence, said thing was this. So kind of having that news broken to them about this whole thing. Also, really quickly, I love that whole Marlon situation of like, Dean pulls out the knife, is about ready to fight him, and it's like, okay, come at me, Twilight. He's about to come at him, and then Donna just shoots him in the leg. It's like, oh, we're about to have this epic, like, close quarter combat fight. Oh, never mind, it's taken care of. But all that stuff with, Doug made me think like, oh, maybe when the conversation eventually comes out about what they really do, he'll be for it, but sadly he's not. Which, once again, you can't blame him. You don't want to blame him, because it's like this life is not for everyone. It's like, I just want to live my normal life. I want to be a good cop and help people, sure, but it's like, And he's like, Donna, you don't have to apologize. Like, the fact of the matter is, you kill monsters. He's like, you're a damn hero, but it's just not the life you want. And that's just a sad aspect of this life. It is not for everyone. It is something that Dean has warned a lot of people about. Because it's actually kind of interesting, because Sam was the one that was kind of like, no, it's actually a good thing, Donna, that you should just let him go, because people you care about are safer away from you, because like all this life does is take away from you, essentially. So even Dean was kind of like, oh, that's a little harsh. But it's like, the fact of the matter is, Dean literally had that similar conversation with Patience earlier this season. But obviously you see Sam doing it just because Sam's kind of in this mindset right now. It's like, for him, it's that situation that they've thought about, that kind of gets constantly brought up. It's like, even in his mind, is like, there's so many people that die. Yes, we save people, but at the same time, we get so many people killed. All the friends and allies they've lost over the course of all these years in this world. This world of hunting is not good. He's like, I deluded myself in thinking we could have it all. We can have Mom, we could have Cass, we can help out Jack to be as good, but it's like, we can't, because his life is bloody, and that's the only way it's going to end. It's going to end badly, because ultimately it's like, how will this end? Like, because in his mind, it's like, there is no happy ending, because Sam and Dean have tried on many different occasions. They have tried multiple times to have that happy ending, but it doesn't work out like that, just because that world just, that hunter life is not just something you can get away from. And even if, like, Doug is kept far away from it, doesn't mean that world won't come back to fight. Because once you know of that world, it's not like the world instinctively comes to you. I mean, Sam and Dean kind of go head first in the whole situation because that's become their life. But even when you're not fully a part of that world, once you know that there are monsters out of there, you can never unsee it. The world is a very different place. Like, Doug might have been able to pull himself away from it, but I'm sure much later on, maybe this season, maybe at something, maybe in the next season, whatever the case may be, I get the feeling for Doug, it's like he's going to like see the world. You can't unsee it. You might get paranoid, might have like a PTSD moment from being like, hey, I was turned into a vampire, I was almost close to being a monster, and that would have meant that they would have had to put you down and everything. So it's like, that's something to think about, so it's not like it's a clear cut thing of like, oh, like, you're away from this world, you're fine. You keep your distance, sure, you stay away from people who are mixed up in that world, sure, but the world is made up all these monsters and supernatural things. You're going to stumble across that world again, whether you want to or not. Like I said, you're most likely to, because your eyes are open now. You know that there's something else to this. So maybe it'd be a situation where Doug ends up calling Donna in, because it's like, oh, like, actually there's a case here. I think it's actually something else. I think it might be something supernatural. So I don't know. There are people who can make it work, but I mean, you even take Sam and Dean's mom, Mary and John. Things it ended well for them. It ended it very badly and bloody. So it's just kind of a situation like, this is just one of those shows where it does leave you the question of like, is it possible to have a happy ending, or is it going to be one of those situations like, oh, it has a pseudo happy ending, but at the same time it's just kind of like it's kind of an endless battle. It's like the whole, oh, light versus darkness. It's just a constant. You can't change it. It's a never ending battle, and it's like the same thing for this. I guess the whole point is to, possibly wipe out all monsters and demons so it's never a fight anymore, but is that plausible? Well, certain things, Jack himself could make that possible, especially with what he is and his abilities. So this is a very good episode, not only about the whole like Donna aspect of things, but like just the fact is it, gets you thinking about that, about the other monsters and stuff. Like I said, I feel like that's big setup for stuff in the future, and I'm kind of excited about that, like what that will entail exactly, because you'll probably see a lot more supernatural attacks and stuff like that. I mean, to be fair, who can say that Clegg was the only one? There might be other people out there kind of doing like this type of like auctioning off people's body parts thing. So I was actually kind of surprised too when I saw that like this was going to be like a Donna episode, because I was like, oh wow, Donna was just in the last episode. It's like, oh, that's so cool that you're in this episode like right now. So that was kind of neat. Luckily, I mean, she might have walked away brokenhearted, but luckily for Donna, she got Wendy back. So there is a silver lining to this kind of sad situation. So I guess there's at least some comfort in knowing that. So, But I'm curious to see what this means going forward with Sam. Like I said, Sam kind of had to pull Dean back, but then I guess it's just to that point where like even optimism has its limits, and at this point it's just like after everything it's finally wearing Sam down, which like you would, like I said, you'd expect it to be Dean, especially because Sam had to pull Dean back up, but Dean's actually renewed with hope and everything, so he's a lot more positive, and it's just like the opposite for Sam. Like there's always just an up and down with this life, and just a lot of times it just feels like there's more downs than ups, you know? So it just feels like it's finally wearing down on Sam. Like I said, great episode. I'm very interested to see what goes down in the next episode, especially with this like whole mindset of Sam's continuing on, like what that means going forward. And what is Dean going to do? Like, is there a way of snapping him out of this? I'm very interested to get back to Mary and Jack since we keep bringing it up. So I'm curious to see, like, can we get back to their story and find out what's happening with them? Because maybe Sam's mindset will change the moment Jack and Mary return, and also the whole Cass and Lucifer situation, whether or not they find out about that. I'm curious to see what happens with Lucifer when this is all said and done, you know, with the whole aspect of Jack and everything. Because the fact is, too, like, Asmodeus doesn't know the fact is Jack isn't even on this world, universe anymore, whichever way you want to look at it. Like, he's not on this world or universe anymore. I'm wondering, Asmodeus probably noticed that immediately, so that's probably something that might kind of come up, too. It's him being like, where the hell is Jack, you know? Last episode, you know, we had that, you know, Kaya dying, but also it turns out the person that killed her was a Kaya from the bad place. So now it begs the question of like, well, the fact of the matter is, does that, I mean, because the fact is, does that mean that she can do that too? I mean, I would assume like that she can dream walk. I don't know. There's still a lot of that situation we don't know yet. So we just kind of have to wait and see what it has in store for us. So. And now moving on to this week's episode of Beyond, a very interesting episode with a lot of interesting things that go down. In this particular episode, we got introduced to Diego, a boy who ended up waking up from a 6-month coma. You know, obviously, I thought it was kind of interesting because it seems like we're spreading this out too, because it isn't just like a very, I mean, to be fair, like Charlie was like our first introduction last season of it, not just being to everyone. But what's kind of interesting, because last season also introduced the fact is that this whole realm situation isn't just like, oh, a select few people. It's like a lot of people technically go there in their comas, but I guess only like a select few come back, and maybe only under certain circumstances does it affect them, you know? I mean, maybe it is a situation that not everyone goes. Maybe there's a certain few people, but once you come back, you're not 100% the same. And we definitely see it with Diego, because when he looks in the mirror, he sees like this skeletal face over his own reflection, and he punches the glass because I don't know, freaks him out. The dog notices it because the dog starts barking at him, which I think that's typically a thing where it's like dogs, animals in general have like a sixth sense to the supernatural. So for them, it's like when something's not right, they kind of freak out. But what's kind of interesting is the fact is that Diego was looking at the TV and it was like staticky. And the fact is, like, so immediately my brain is like, okay, so he's got to be possessed by one of those things, because Holden had a dream about Luke, and Luke was staring at a static screen on TV. So this all has to tie into those things, because he has a similar mouth, the bugs and stuff coming out of his mouth. It's similar to those things at the end of season 1 that was crossing the bridge. So most likely it's saying that Diego got possessed by one of them. So I guess it's more the ramifications of what Holden did last season when he broke the bridge. Like, the fact of the matter is, he didn't completely close off the gateway when he did that. What he did was just, or the fact, well, no, because his younger self in his head at the end of the season was kind of like, okay, like, this is what happened when you destroy the bridge. So it's like, it's not just like, because I'm curious how that happened. Like, they must have like trailed along with Holden or something like that. Like, maybe because it seems like maybe they're not from the realm exactly, but maybe when he destroyed the bridge, it allowed them to kind of fester in the realm, and anytime anyone enters the realm, they just hijack their bodies on the way back, something like that. I don't know. I guess it's going to be a situation, because, you know, he was also told, like, this is what happened to the realm, which we have not seen the realm subsequently since that happened. I mean, we saw it in the season finale of being like, whoa, this is what the realm has become. And it's like, the next world is going to be yours. So it seems like they're trying to fester over into this world. Like I said, whether or not they're originally from the realm or they're from a different world entirely, like, connected to the after. Like I said, like, the dark crevices of, like, the afterlife, that, like, that spot in between, like, maybe they exist somewhere in between the realm and the afterlife, and they're coming over here. I don't know, because it seemed like, I don't know, like, especially what it was doing to Frost, it seems like they devour life. It seems like that's going to be their thing, but I don't know at this point in time. What was really interesting is what it made Diego do. The fact that he ended up killing his parents. The car crashed. He ended up. His mom didn't die in the crash, but he made sure to kill her with that shard of glass. But what's also interesting too is it doesn't seem like normal stuff holds him down, because he flew out the window, got a shard of glass in his side, and it didn't stop him. He still got up, was kind of fine. It's not like the wounds healed immediately, so it does seem like they are held to their whole standards, but it's probably a situation of maybe they're in a better, like they kind of push the pain aside, like it's because it's like maybe they can kind of shut off those like receptors in the body or something like that. But what was really interesting, I know I'm skipping around a lot, but it was like the fact is that Holden got the same wound. So it's like, what does that mean? Because the fact of the matter is, it's like they're connected. Maybe because when Holden used his powers, they kind of latched onto him. Maybe some specific like psychic link was formed. Maybe this isn't even just about those things. Maybe this is someone in particular from the other side has come over and they have a connection to Holden. Because we still have not seen everything that went down to Holden in those 12 years he was in the coma. We saw bits and pieces last season when he was getting his memories back, but that's about it. So who's to say he didn't cross paths with something or someone else? I mean, we never really even got 100% of Charlie's explanation of like what it was like for her over there too. So what her experiences were 100% like. So it's hard to say at this point. So, or maybe Holden's whole situation of that wound is because of his powers, because Holden's powers exist the way that they do. Maybe his body is psychically telling him to be wary because like what's about to go down. I don't know. So many possibilities. We literally would have to wait. Like there's no clear-cut answer at this point, so that's something we're gonna have to wait to possibly get the answer to. But it is sad about Holden. I do appreciate they are immediately doing what I brought up last time. Like the fact is that struggle of Holden trying to keep the normalcy in his life. He shows up to work late because he woke up in the middle of the woods and he's got this responsibilities. It's like this is his dad's company and everything. And like not only just because he, because the only reason why Holden really wants his job is not because he really wants it, but it's just because he doesn't really know what else he wants to do with his life. Plus, it's like he wants normalcy, so he probably figures this is the easiest way, which is something Steven kind of gets on him later on about. It's like, you don't even want this job, but I do, and I think it kind of struck a nerve with Holden because it's like he doesn't really, this isn't what he's passionate about, he cares about, but his dad offered him his job, and maybe in his mind is also a way for him to kind of make up for the like past 12 years of not being around with his dad. Maybe that's what that is too. Kind of feel like a connection with his family again on some level. It was interesting too, the lady that they went out of their way to introduce. It's like, oh yeah, when the lady he was being introduced to, Steven made the joke of like, oh yeah, there's your dad's new girlfriend, but it's like, I don't think that's the situation, but it seemed like there might be something there. I mean, like, oh my God, you look good and everything. It's like, oh, stop. It's like kind of a little, it seems like it might be a little flirty, but I don't know. They went out of their way to introduce her, so it doesn't seem like, it seems like one of those things like it's set up. It's like, oh yeah, this character might not seem nothing right now, but it's like, this might be something later on. Whether it's going to be a twist like, oh, she's actually works for Hollow Sky or something like that, or whether it's just kind of like oh, she is potentially a girlfriend, which is going to be weird considering the fact is, well, I mean, Tom and Diane are separated, but still, I don't know. I guess it's just added more element to the whole aspect of like, well, there are still aspects of like these past 12 years that even like Holden still doesn't know about, like things that have changed, It's like, well, his parents are split up, so they have the right to go off and be happy, he kind of had his problems with the whole Patrick Ian and Diane situation last season, but I think in one way it's kind of like, well, as long as he makes you happy and as long as he's there for you, I'm happy for you, Mom. So, but the fact is, Holden kind of lost control because he's starting to slip. Like everything is triggering those visions. They're becoming stronger and stronger, which also Diego had those too. So the world on fire, which begs the question, like, if it is one of those things, is that supposed to be having a vision of like, oh, this is the reality that's coming true and I'm going to be the one to cause it? Because even the voices in his head are like, kill, kill, kill. So it's like, why would they be well, I mean, I guess that's just Diego's consciousness tapping into whatever's inside of him, I guess, is one way of looking at it like that. But it's getting to the point that Holden, like, dealing with that, and Steven kind of berating him about losing this piece that's super important and everything, that Holden's powers go a little crazy, starts ripping, kind of tearing the place apart, moving stuff. The freaking blade to one of the helicopters flies and almost hits Steven, but Holden pushes him out the way. And it literally was like a Final Destination moment. It hit the ceiling. But then, like, it was falling down, and Holden pushed the table Steven was on, which Steven saw everything kind of happening, but it's like, it's not clear whether he really knows it was Holden who did it, because it was just kind of like, I was here and it got pushed back twice, and then it's just like all this weird stuff that's happening. He's looking at Holden, and Holden's just not really responding, so it's kind of like whether he knows or not. Because it'd be interesting if Steven did, like, really be one of the few people who knows something that even his family doesn't know. The only person who, like, not mix up in all of this that knows is Luke. So it's just kind of interesting to me. Well, I guess you arguably can't say that since Luke was kind of kidnapped and everything. So technically he is a part of this. But nevertheless, it's just kind of an interesting development. I'm wondering what's going to be the explanation for that. I mean, a lot of computers got fried and stuff. They're like the last two people there. Like, how do you explain that? Like, Steven had stuff he didn't want kind of publicly out there. So I'm wondering, is he going to try and do the same thing for Holden? Or is he going to be like, oh, you got these secrets? Well, I'll keep your secret, but I want you to do stuff for me. So it might turn to a situation like blackmailing him. I'll expose you to everyone that you're, I don't know, this quote unquote freak. It seems like it might be one of those type of situations, especially more people found out about his abilities. People would be super scared of him, especially with what Holden is capable of. Like, amongst everyone, like, so far we've been introduced to, in particular Charlie, he has the most devastating ability, because, like, it just has just how his power works. Charlie's is more like a mathematical equation type of situation. So hers can have physical applications in this world, but not to, like, not to the physical, like, destruction and killing potential that Holden does, so. And speaking of Charlie, we got a little peek at her this episode, because she's all about trying to get revenge on Arthur, but Annabelle's kind of like, no, don't do that. Because, like, for Charlie, it's like, that's all she has. For her, it's like, I can't move on until he pays for what he did. Because it's like, and it seems like that might be something I brought up earlier. It's like, oh, we don't really know much about Charlie's experience in the realm. It's like, well, soon enough, we might get that explanation. Because the question is, was it while Charlie was in the realm, or was it afterwards? It seemed like it might have been an afterwards thing, but I don't know how, like, she met up with Arthur and everything. But especially how Annabelle got mixed up in it. It makes you wonder, does Annabelle have any abilities, or is she kind of like Willow, where she kind of got mixed up in the realm, but she doesn't actually have any abilities? Like I say, because it's interesting, because only certain people walked away with abilities. There's Edgar, like Diego, but it seems like Diego's, well, he hasn't really shown abilities, but Diego seems like he's possessed by something. Charlie and Holden, they're the only three that walked away from the realm with special abilities. To be fair, there might be a lot more out there. We just might not be aware of them yet. Like I said, I'm appreciating so far this season that they're already expanding the scope. Like I said, that was like the whole Diego situation is happening on Argentina, and that just showed you how widespread the situation is. Because it's a worldwide effect, especially because what we saw so far was like Holden, like, being like, oh, this is his hometown on fire, but Diego is like the world on fire. So it isn't just like it's going to be dealing with his hometown and everything, but it is going to be a worldwide kind of potential attack / takeover type of thing. So, but I'm getting back to what I was saying. It's like Annabella wants Charlie to let this go, because it's like, you can't change the past, but it's like he used us. Like, if we had not gotten away, like, who knows what would have happened. Like, as we saw, like, him constantly trying to push Holden in the past, it's like he was most likely doing the same thing to Annabelle, in particular Charlie. And it's just like, I can't let that squirmy bastard get away with what he's done, so. But for Annabelle, it's like, this is house. Let's just buy it and be happy. We have us. That should be all we focus on. She's even saying, like, if you're going to go back for Arthur, why not meet up with Holden? You like him. She's like, it's not even like that. It's like, you do. And it isn't like your feelings for Holden a better thing to focus on rather than your revenge for Arthur. Because, and what Annabelle's trying to get across is like, you're talking about all the stuff he took away from us. You're going to take away even more if you do this, and you're too blind to see it. Because the fact of the matter is, like I said, last episode, it seemed like Charlie was referencing the fact that she's killed someone before. So I don't know, because the way not her in particular, but Yellow Jacket was kind of like, oh, you and me, we know what it's like to be behind the gun and pull the trigger type of thing. So that's how I interpreted that during the premiere. But you know, it's that situation of when you have revenge on a heart. Like, revenge doesn't solve any situation. Plenty of stuff teaches you that, but it's just like it's right here in front of you, and it's like for her, it's like all her pain can be sent back to Arthur, and it's like, what do I do with this? All I can do is try to fix it, but by taking care of this, so I don't know. Which it's kind of interesting because, like I said, fix it. That's kind of what Holden's trying to do, like because like trying so hard to work on everything, like at his dad's job, it's like he's like, I gotta fix this. It's because he's kind of being reminded of himself at the end of the season, being like, oh, you gotta fix this, like the problem you caused. Because it's like he's trying to like, because it's like, I think subconsciously him stressing out and trying to fix it so hard is him kind of dealing with that, because even then he doesn't 100% understand what's going on. Maybe he still thought it was a dream or whatever the case may be, but he doesn't 100% know about what's going on, and it's just, like I said, just kind of driving him crazy. And Charlie, in a sense, is like kind of been driven crazy by the fact is that she needs her revenge, which we haven't seen Charlie get affected by this yet. So will it affect her in due time just because of her connection to the realm or not? I'm curious to see how that happened, what that means what it means going forward with everything. Also, this means that she's going back to find Arthur, so she definitely will be bumping into Holden, which is definitely going to be very interesting. Like I said last time, it's definitely going to be a little awkward because it's like, well, he's dating Willa, and Arthur's Willa's grandfather, and it's just this whole weird, awkward situation in that regard. Which that also brings up what I brought up last episode. Is like, yo, maybe something could happen between Holden and Charlie, which I feel so bad about, but it's just, I can't help it. It's just like, I like Charlie and Holden. But then it's like, oh, what about Willa? I still think there could be a Luke and a Willa, just because, I don't know, like, because he talks to her and everything. Like, their talk last episode, this episode, like him helping her out. It's like, I don't know how to help you with the whole Holden situation. That's something you have to do on your own. But everything else you're kind of stressing about, which is kind of adorable, her being like, I don't know how to really handle this. It's like, should I contact him first, or should I wait for him to cool down and he'll contact me first? Like, it's adorable for her being like, I wonder, is this like her first relationship? I mean, to be fair too, it's also that awkward situation, and they haven't really talked about it, but it's like, well, they have their connection from the realm, so it makes their situation a little different. But like it got brought up last episode, kind of a very unconventional way of meeting and everything. But Luke giving her the advice to kind of run and listen to music and everything, and just part of me and because it seems like she also kind of has come to start relying on Luke, because it's like, yeah, when she was done with her run, what did she do? First thing she did was like stop by. It was like, oh, is Luke here? Oh, he's not here. Oh, okay. And it's just part of me thinking, I think I'd be sick. I mean, that starts getting complicated too, because his ex-girlfriend Riley is in the picture, which obviously he has a big problem with Riley, because of like, oh yeah, I kind of got kicked out of school because I was protecting you, and you kind of threw me under the bus, so it's kind of not cool. But seems like she's doing better, and she's like, hey, so they kind of pick things up. But then she tells about the fact there's just some pills stolen, and she's trying to steal them back. And you see that she kind of you could definitely tell it's like she's kind of manipulating Luke into going with her, or at the very least, you know, it's that sad situation of exes, they have a tendency to draw you back in, dude. Because I guess in his mind, it's also like, oh, I'm kind of forgetting about why I'm kind of mad at you anyway, just because it's like, oh man, things are good. It's like, oh, but it's just like, who's to say what? Because she just happens to drop the story. It's like, oh, do you know what's happening? It's like someone's blaming me for some stolen pill. I didn't steal it. It was so and so who stole it. Oh, like I know exactly where they got him hidden and everything. I'm like, yeah, you're going to go down a rabbit hole with this particular situation. So ultimately, it's going to end very badly for Luke. Either it's going to end with him getting arrested, or, you know, losing his job, and or both, you know. So it just sucks, because it's a situation where you can clearly read, it's like, she's just using you, dude, and that's so sad. Hopefully we might find ourselves in a situation where Willa's there to kind of back him up, to kind of pull him out of a situation he gets dragged into. So like I said, I think that's what I want. That way everyone can walk away happy, you know, at least decently happy is how I feel about it. One thing that did take me by surprise in this episode was, because it was kind of like, they kind of completely ignored it last episode, but they bring it up this episode about like, oh, like Jeff finding the letters from like, oh, the basket from Helping Hand, and Christina is like, oh, you got it from people from church, but you didn't tell me it was from Helping Hand. He's like, what are you tripping about? He's like, the fact of the matter is they're connected to this cult and everything, which Christina's not willing to listen to him because it's Jeff. It's like, and even Jeff admits, it's like, I know my brother told you a lot of stuff about me. And yes, a lot of it's probably true, but the fact is Christina's like, this Helping Hand gave her purpose, it gave her structure, because it helps her from not falling apart. Because the fact of the matter is, like, she's a single parent, you know, losing Kevin the way she lost him, like, it's a lot, and Helping Hand, you know, helps her. But Jeff even drops that, like, oh, Pastor Ian might have had something to do with Kevin's death, which we know probably not directly, but indirectly, because he is connected to this whole situation. Even leading to Jeff trying to strangle him later on in an episode. Interestingly enough, that Ian didn't say anything, though. I guess for him, it would bring about unwanted attention. So, because I'm sure Jeff getting arrested is just going to... I mean, I'd be curious to see what happens, especially considering the fact is the sheriff is in the know about the whole, like, Matthew's plan, like, you know, of, like, getting close to Ian to kind of find out about Hollow Sky. I'm about to call it No More Sky. Whoa. Did I call it that earlier? I don't remember. Or did I call it Hollow Sky? I might have called it No More Sky. I'll probably find out when I go back through the recording, but even if I don't, it's still going to say it. It doesn't matter. Hollow Sky. But, so I wonder what he would do if he arrested Jeff and found that out, because Jeff brought this all to his attention in the first place with Yellow Jacket and everything, so... It does seem like Jeff is kind of backing down just because it's like he doesn't want to worry Christina, and at least this way he can be in his nephew's life and in Christina's life, but probably also be there to protect him if necessary. So I don't know. Because he even warns Diana, because I mean he saw Diane there at Pastor Ian's place, talking to him, trying to, like, it's like she's like apologizing. It's like, Tom got so in my own head about everything about Holden. It's like, I was just asking all these questions, like maybe we could pick things up, and he's like, well, maybe the separation between us is good. I wonder, is that his own choice, or was he kind of ordered to not get too close to Diane? It's because, oh, you're getting too close to her, now she's getting suspicious, and the fact is, if she's too wary of you, they might try and keep Holden from us, so maybe that's one way of looking at it. Or maybe it's just because the fact is she was so suspicious of him, now he wants to pull back just to kind of really see if that's really true, or whether, you know, any of Tom's quote-unquote influence over being suspicious and his crazy theories, or like whether that holds any weight when it comes to Diana. So Diane, like I said, Diana, I'm probably going to be doing that a lot. I have a tendency to do that, but nevertheless, you know, so, but she confides in Jeff about it, but even Jeff's like, don't do that, the FBI is just going to put a target on your back. But it's like they're both in this to protect people important to them, him, Christine, and for Diane, it's Holden, you know, so they're willing to do whatever it takes. So I am curious to see, because she was kind of making a little headway. She's like, oh, what, do we really need to keep that space between us? So I'm curious to see what direction that kind of takes going forward. And then finally, I brought it up earlier, was Yellow Jacket. He has a meeting with Tess in this episode, and basically they talk about a lot of interesting things, like, for example, like, oh yeah, Frosty's on the other side with his wife, which I go, right, they don't know, because the only people who know the truth are Willa and Holden, and they didn't stick around long enough to answer those questions. Like, Willa finally told Arthur, but like Hollow Sky doesn't know the truth about what happened, the whole ordeal. Like, yeah, he got stuck, but they were like, oh, he's with his wife at the very least. It's like they don't know exactly what went down in the realm. So, but for Tess, it's all about continuing the work. Like, all they need to keep things up by keeping people believing. Because he was asking, like, you know, Yellow Jacket was like, okay, so what about Holden? It's like, we'll use him in time. It's like, oh, to get Frost back? It's like, no, not necessarily. It's because they still want to keep up the plan of, like, using Holden as a means of getting other people to the realm so they could see their loved ones, sadly not knowing the true danger behind it and everything. Which is like, how would you plan on doing that anyway? Holden's not going to go nowhere near you now after everything that went down last season with you and Frost. He's not going to trust you, so I don't know whether they plan on forcing his hand or not. But basically, Tess is kind of like, oh yeah, why don't we work together to bring Hollow Sky to a new level, essentially. And the moment she asked this question, she was like, oh yeah, what about Charlie? Which he immediately goes, oh yeah, she's been dealt with. Which the moment he said that, and she was like, oh okay, I was like, she knows you're lying. Because I didn't bring it up last episode, but the fact is she saw that someone broke into her place because she saw that there was water from like a glass sitting on a table, and she was kind of like, wait, what? Charlie got the glass out in time, but not before it left a spot on a table. So she knows someone broke into her place. I don't know whether she had security cameras or something or not, or whether she just like pieced it together. It's like, no. The only person that could have broken in. Well, no, that might be actually what that whole situation might be. Because in the end, she's kind of like, oh yeah, like basically telling someone to dispose of Yellow Jacket. So either it's because she thinks it's him, or she knows that he's lying about Charlie. And it's like, if he's lying about Charlie's the one who broke into my house. She had to be working with him. So I'm curious about that. Because the fact is, she didn't say anything about trying to track down and dispose of Charlie. So she probably thinks like he killed Charlie, but he probably might have used her in some shape or form to get the information he needed to get to her place, or just did it himself, you know? So either way, I feel like if she knew Charlie was alive, she would have went after Charlie herself. So I think it's just she's very suspicious of him in general, because it's like, okay, who would want to break into my place? Him. He doesn't trust me, doesn't like the way I handle things, the way I've handled him in the past. So I don't know. And that is also the question too, is like, when would they ever plan on bringing Frost back? Because it was like, well, what is the plan with that whole situation? He is the kind of the leader of this whole situation. So it's like, how do you leave your leader in a situation like that? What do you, I mean, would Tess even want to hand power back over now that she's kind of been running things for a while? I'm also curious, does she know about her pills being missing too? I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, Yellow Jacket's the one that has him right now, so that's definitely going to be very interesting going forward with that. I'm curious to find out, like, what is in Tessa's head about this whole situation. Does she know about Charlie? Is she just blaming it all on Yellow Jacket, like choosing to take him out now? Or maybe just because she's always been suspicious of him, and it's like, well, I better take him out now before he tries to take me out. Which, obviously, Yellow Jacket is pretty good at the job. There's no way he's going to be taken down that easily. Sadly, it might end with a situation of his wife and child being mixed up in it. Might even turn into this awkward situation where he has to go to Holden for help. It's like, I need you to help me defend my family. I was like, I know you have a problem with me. Yes, I killed your friend, but that doesn't mean my wife and daughter should die because of it. Might be something like that we might see. Might not be the next episode, but it might be something we see this season, like, enemies turned allies. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. So we would just kind of have to wait and see. Like, overall, great episode with a lot of the stuff they kind of set up and brought to our attention in this episode. I thought was kind of interesting. So I'm very interested to see what goes down in the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.